Hi, Candace.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thanks yourself.
Good, good. I think we're in the
Welcome
same
back.
weather, but I look like I'm in summer and you look like you're in winter.
Yeah, we're definitely on the opposite this time
Yeah.
around. So,
Yeah.
how's it been? Welcome back to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you back on the podcast.
Oh, thank you. It's been super busy. I just finished like wrapping up my third book and getting it out. I know, woohoo, getting it out to the world. I'm really excited. It was I had this I thought it was kind of further than it was because I'd left it and came back to it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I needed to do a little more work than I thought, but I'm really pleased with how it turned out.
And how does it feel like as a creative? Like, I'm going to use myself as an example.
Mhm.
Each time I release a new song, I feel like it's my first, like I haven't done it before. And I'm like so excited, but I'm anxious at the same time. But you also find
Yes,
out that you've done better than the last with your
yes,
craft. What's it
yes.
like for you?
You just took the words right out of my mouth. It feels exactly the same. I think I'm starting to, I kind of articulated in my mind that in the first two books, I was so focused on getting the story and really just the making sure it was kind of like it didn't flow, like it flowed in the end, but it was sort of more like, okay, have I checked this and have I checked this? I feel
Mm,
like I've kind of grown into space a little more in terms of a writer, and I'm much more comfortable with my skill to be able to do it. And it allowed for a different kind of approach when writing this book because I felt that I was much more comfortable not to play with the characters a little bit and to really sort of test them a little more and push them a little more. Everyone, even though this is a memoir that I'm writing, it happened so long ago that everybody feels like a character because the time is different. So it feels like a universe, a completely different universe, because it was a completely different time in terms of how you interacted with technology, how you interacted with other
yeah,
people, and just even how you would buy tickets to do something. If you're going on a holiday now, you plan ahead and book online, but there you just kind of rock up and go buy your tickets. So it's all a different thing. So I'm able to play with it a bit more and really enjoy the experience. And I feel like the outcome is just stronger and stronger as I go along.
yeah. I saw, I'm not sure whether it was a book launch on your Instagram profile. You were at a bookstore. Was that the launch?
Yes, yes, that was the official launch. So that was good. Had lots of folks showed up, and it was nice. Had lots of questions and lots of people there. So I enjoyed it. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. So, for the listeners, this is the second time Candace is appearing on the show.
Mhm,
I am
mhm,
going to tag the first episode to this recording
mhm,
so people can get to know you in depth. Where on this show, we're going to touch, on your new book and
mhm,
all the juicy stuff that's inside of it. And I
mhm,
was checking the stats. So, each time that an author comes back on the show, I check the stats for the previous episode, and we managed to get 104 plays for
whoa,
previous episode. So at least as there's some peeps out there that got to know you, and you probably got them excited for their own individual life.
yeah,
To explore whatever they may be feeling deep inside and just let it out. As we
yeah,
said in the last episode, whether it's to go out and see the world, whether it's to pursue your dreams or becoming an author or musician, whatever it is, I
mhm.
mean, you are a great role model for anyone, to go out and do it, and don't look back.
Yes.
So,
Oh, I hope folks do that. And it's not always easy and it's not always feasible based on where you are in your life as well. So,
yeah,
just
yeah.
even making a small space to be able to do something that you like around the rest of the things that you have to do is nice too.
Yeah, I was telling one of my friends today because I was checking this X tweet about the UK Prime Minister, and he's preparing, you know, not necessarily for war, but they're getting themselves like equipped. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what's going on in Europe? What's going on around the world? Compared to when went traveling. For anyone to do it now, I'm thinking, sure. thinking you might just go on holiday. Next thing you know, there's a bomb explosion because what's happening.
I
Crazy.
Yeah, there's a definite undertone of just general instability and uncomfortableness. I don't claim to be an expert and understand the political landscape very well. I don't hide my head in the sand by any means,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
here in Canada, for example, just to give you a sort of taste of what's happening here. So I do my grocery shopping online because it's easier, and then I just make my kids pick it up when they get home from school. I'm like, here, go pick up the groceries. So I don't have to sort of go around. But online, even now, they have little signs next to all the food prepared in Canada, made in Canada,
Yeah.
tariffs, no tariffs. So I'm just making different choices. Folks are making different choices, buying
Mm.
more locally. For example, I bought a few things for my book launch for like publicity for, bags or whatever. And I chose a Canadian company rather than, it was a couple dollars more, but not so much that it made it crazy different. So folks are just making different choices and buying within your country.
I couldn't help myself but laugh there. Like tariffs,
I know
no
I saw
tariffs.
you. I know. I know. It's crazy. It's crazy because there's tariffs going to states or not tariffs, and
Yeah.
sometimes there's tariffs and sometimes there's not. But I think just being an aware shopper, and if you have a choice between this peanut butter or that peanut butter, and if that peanut butter is made in Canada, I'm gonna like, and if nobody's like peanut butter fanatic, then I'm gonna buy the one that's made in Canada. So we're just,
Yeah.
and a lot of consumers are making the same choices. And even in the shops, when you go to the shops, they have little tags under each item letting you know where it's made and where it's prepared.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm also not into, the political scene. I just keep my eye out, knowing what's happening. It's better to know than not to know what's happening.
Mm.
But I just find it so sad that, we can't enjoy the beauty of the world. And there's so much more beauty, and light than there is darkness. And we just have to be in the middle of all this turmoil and grievances and disputes and, power hungry individuals.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just
I
glad,
mean,
like, one more thing, I'm just glad that, I grew up in, okay, I'm, millennial, you still enjoy the beauty of the world, but
yeah,
now when
yeah.
you're a Gen Z, it's like, the only world you're seeing is your phone and scrolling.
Oh, I have to tell you something. So I went to Disneyland. I have three kids. My youngest, the last time we went to Disneyland, I think I was pregnant with her, so she doesn't count that as a trip. I'm like, you did go technically. So she would have put her foot down and said, I really want to go. Anyways, her best friend's mom was keen to go, so she organized the trip, and we did a 5-day flash Disneyland excursion. And when I went to Disneyland before, it was 14 years ago, and you can rent strollers at the door. So you go into the park and it's all yay Disney, Disney, and then you can rent strollers. Now you can rent strollers and you can rent those ride a scooter things. And let me tell you, there was so many folks riding those scooters just because of their size rather than their, dodgy hip or bad knee or ankle or whatever it was, back or, and there was a lot of scootering around because of size. And I felt, have you seen the movie Wall-E by Walt Disney?
No,
Wall-E.
no.
Okay. So, anyways, in Wall-E, what happens is the world's destroyed and everyone lives in space. And when they sold it, they said, "Oh, there's a scooter grandma can ride around." But by the time they get to it hundreds of years later, everybody's riding the scooter around. Everyone's larger than healthily should be, and everyone's on their phone. And nobody talks to anybody. They just all look at their phone, riding their scooters around in circles, and then they go off and live their own life. And I got like this real kind of almost visceral reaction to all these people riding these scooters around because I'm sure there was some legit people who needed them, but it just felt like I'll just take a scooter. It's just easier. And I just got these Wally vibes of just this, like I'm looking at my phone, I'm just riding my scooter around. And yeah. And even I went to Costco the other day, and I was on crutches because I had surgery, so I needed to be on crutches. And the lady said to me, she says, "Oh, do you want to borrow the scooter?" And I'm like, "No, I don't want to borrow your scooter. I want to take my crutches. Like, I'm good. Don't put me in that scooter." And I was just like crutching around Costco because I refused to go on that scooter. But yes, I feel the same with you. Like, I look at the kids and they're constantly on their phones. And I remember one time I was somewhere, and there was this handsome guy, and he was on his phone, and this really pretty girl walked by, and I watched him and I watched her, and she was kind of gave him a little look, and he didn't even notice her because he was so busy on his phone. This gorgeous girl walked by, and she was checking him out, and she just walked on by. So anyways, you're missing a lot of stuff with your face and your phone.
Yeah, you're losing touch with reality.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had my first phone high school. You didn't even care about phones, and all you could do with the phone at that time was make a phone call or get an SMS.
Or just be like, hey, beep, beep, beep.
Then all these other apps came along where you could chat, with people, but I still wasn't interested in it. I mean, living in this digital era, it's important, I mean, look at how we're communicating now, that's leveraging the technology that's out there.
Yeah.
But we're using it for good use. We're using it to educate people. We're using it to promote our work.
Yeah.
We're using it to educate ourselves, if anything. Depending how you set up your algorithm on Facebook or Instagram, you're going to get content that really matters, where there's value in it. But scrolling, I mean, I asked another guy today, so what do you do on your phone the whole day? He's like, I'm watching TikTok. So I said, are you just watching TikTok, or are you making TikTok videos? No, I'm just watching. I'm like, what's the point of that? If you are making TikTok videos to promote yourself or your brand, that's a different story now. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It kind of makes me laugh because when I was in university, I worked. I went to university. My mom was sick. I was at the hospital, and my daughter said to me, "Well, it's really difficult to work and to do school." I said, "Well, it's not. You can go to school, you can get a job, but what goes away is your doom scrolling on TikTok for hours and hours a day. So those hours that you spend doom scrolling, you could actually be, earning some money and talking to people. And so I get you. I completely hear you. And I looked at that. I keep going back to that guy who was on his phone, probably doom scrolling or watching some cat video or whatever. And this gorgeous girl is walking by, and I'm like, oh my God, you've missed these moments, even just a little, just a little thumbs up to get you through your day. Like, yeah, all right, I still got it, or whatever it is. But he just missed that moment. And I just thought, oh, that's really sad. So he's probably looking on Tinder, looking for someone to meet. There she is, right
exactly. But you're not even going to meet the person, which is what I was going to say, is that, you probably don't even know how to interact with another human being anymore, So that girl's looking at him. Maybe there's this 1% chance he noticed her walking past, like a glimpse, but he's like, okay, I don't know what to say to her, what do I say to her? How do I even greet her? So wherever you are meeting online, it's like, okay, we're chatting. I mean, that's easy, cool. But interacting with other humans, I mean, those were the best days. I mean, you travel around the world, okay? Just being with your friends, going to these different cultural events, parties, just socializing, like genuine socializing. You don't get that anymore. I was reading an article, it's in my local community, so it's not really a club, it's more like a bar, but there's dancing that goes on. And there was an article that was posted today online from the local newspaper
Mm.
that this girl, she went there after work, with one of her friends to have a drink. She decided
Mm.
to stay a bit longer. You know how it is, like on a Friday night. I'll stay a bit longer,
One
on the
drink and then you're woohoo.
now she's missing. She's missing.
What?
They don't know where she is, you know? And I'm like, whoa. And I mean, this is a well established venue in quite a good area, you know. But I mean, this is what's happening. It's so scary to go out now and even socialize because you don't even know how the night's going to end up. And I mean, this venue had something happened. I think it was about 2 years ago where a murder actually happened there as well. And it
Mm.
was because one guy was there with his girlfriend, other guys interfered, he got involved, he was outnumbered, he ended up dead, you know,
Oh my
say
gosh.
bluntly.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like this should never happen, when I was growing up and I was socializing and I was going out, it
Yeah.
was never happening. So it's quite scary out there.
If you say it's interesting, my daughter went out just this last weekend and came back and told us sort of not murder or disappearing, and I'm very sorry to hear that. But there was a fight at the end of the night, how things go, and
Yeah.
the police were there, and she said that the policeman pulled out like a rifle and got ready to use the rifle, and I thought, wow, I usually think I thought they just kind of did the presence
Yeah.
thing, but it just felt heavier than I've ever heard it be before. And yeah, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. What can we say? What can we say? It's like, we don't even want to talk anymore. We just want to shoot each other.
Gosh, I hope not.
Okay. Okay, that was a very different start to the show, but it's good to
Yes.
have these conversations, especially with individuals, from different countries and,
Mhm.
just get an idea of what's happening. We can still be cool with each other. And the message we promote on the podcast just by having a conversation is, yeah, we can still be peaceful with each other. We can still chat with people. The world isn't that bad. So that's at
Mhm.
least one takeaway from this.
Yes.
So, hello, I am here from Prague to Cairo. What's
Yes.
happening? What's
What's
happening?
happening? Ooh, baby, a lot is happening in this book. I've got a book just here. I'll show you the cover because I love the cover.
I
So
love
the
it.
cover starts in. Sorry, I got all this backwards with you. Starts in Prague and ends in Cairo. So that's the trip,
Nice.
which is good. And yeah, it's a whole different thing. And I was thinking about it, and I thought, what is so different about this book? There's two things different about this book from my perspective. The first thing is the other books take place in Europe, and I don't mean to poo-poo Europe because Europe's really cool. But you go to a town square and then another town square and then another. There's nuances in each feel. Each city has a different feel to it, and there's different things that happen. But the thing about this book is 2/3 of it takes place in the Middle East. And the Middle East, to me, where I grew up in Canada, it was so different. Like the culture, even just the food, the smells, the way people interact, it's so different. And I was so fascinated by, and I always wanted to go to these places. I grew up, and the National Geographic was kind of like my lifeline. Once a month, that baby would come through the door and smack onto the carpet, and I'd unwind the mail and sort of peek through every page and check all the pictures and check all the exotic locations that were just so fascinating and so foreign, and just so different than anything we had. And I've constantly the desire to go to Jerusalem and the desire to go to Petra and to go to the pyramids and take a boat trip on the Nile. So all of that happens in this book, and it's at a time again where people were doing it, and I wasn't the only one doing it, and it was happening a lot. People were out there traveling that route, but it wasn't as popular as it is now, or as accessible, or as available. So there's definitely a different grittiness to it, just even that sort of sandy vibe of being in the desert and what it was like, and just completely new experience for me.
Yeah, can you imagine? Also saw on the press release you mentioned that you were waiting for a guy. What's that about?
Oh man. Yeah, this is why I'm very excited to say like everyone's feeling like characters now because when I look at
Yeah.
my sort of my choices back then, I like to sort of distance myself from the person I was. Yeah, so there's a guy, and he dipped in and out of the first two books, and he shows up at the beginning of this third book, and this is kind of like the ultimate, like I don't know, ultimate last chance, hurrah, if you will, to sort of see if this is anything. And that's the first part of the book. And then I head off to the Middle East and just have all these crazy experiences. So he's in the very first part, and then he's gone, and then we move on to the next part, which is good.
Well, I guess all of these adventurous stories, there's some guy somewhere there or some girl out there somewhere.
Yeah,
That's part
yeah,
of the story.
yeah. It's funny. Sometimes there wasn't, just because there wasn't. But
Yeah.
yeah, he weaves through quite a few of the books, and then it's it depends on where you are in terms of what's happening. But most of the travel is really about the experiences, quick understanding of what it was like. For example, when we got to Amman in this book, I flew from Amsterdam to Amman, and my friends had already been there for a little while that I was meeting up with in Amman, and they had taken a taxi, which is weird, from Lebanon to Amman. And I said, "You took a taxi?" And he said, "Oh yeah, yeah." And the taxi driver invited us all over for dinner, and I just went, "What? Like we're going to the taxi driver's house for dinner? This seems so strange." But we did. We went to the taxi driver's house for dinner, and the story of the taxi driver's house and everything that happened at the taxi driver's house, which was so weird. Yeah, and just all things like just not it's not appropriate to sit next to a man we don't know on the bus, for example. So the bus driver would see us coming and rearrange everyone so we could sit in the back row of the bus where the four seats were. And get on the bus, and everyone's giving us a stink eye because they had secured the back seats and they weren't too happy with us kind of having to sit back there. And yeah, so just all different things that I never considered, or yeah, just it always was just I wanted to see these places. But most of the time, I don't know about you, but when you go on holiday, if you think, oh, I want to go see the Eiffel Tower, I'm so excited to see the Eiffel Tower. But it's like humping over there, getting through the traffic, bumping into people, watching your bags so no one steals anything. And, there's all the sort of the surrounding of it. And that's what this is. It's that constant, just the journey part of it, and just the getting around and seeing people, and the people that you meet along the way. That makes it something.
Yeah, it's like, you mentioned, okay, the Eiffel Tower. With you, it's not about, okay, I'm going from here to the Eiffel Tower and I'm only going to write about, the Eiffel Tower. You are like
Mhm.
mentioning all the small pieces in between getting to the Eiffel Tower,
Yeah, yeah.
you know?
And the experience of going up in the Eiffel Tower is not something that I'll go on and on about. I won't tell you about the history, or, when it was built, and, how many people did stuff up here or whatever. It's more the experiences around getting to the locations. I remember we were going to visit in this book. We are going to visit the Dome of the Rock in Israel, and you have to go through Israeli soldiers, and then once you pass that check, then you go in, and then you're evaluated to see if your clothes are appropriate, and if not, you have to put on some extra garments to make sure that you're dressed
Wow.
appropriately, which is fair.
Yeah.
I got it, it's no problem. But we were waiting in line behind probably about, I don't know, maybe couple people back from this one woman, and we were there, bags ready to be checked by the soldiers, because we're like, oh, here's our bags, they kind of rifle through your bags. And the Israeli soldiers, they all have their big guns. And this woman, she has like her sort of wrinkly face, and her blonde hair was out to here, and she had her hand over her bag, and she was holding it, like clutching it in death grip. And she goes, and she said it in a South African accent. I won't use my South African accent, but she was raving on about how she had diplomatic immunity and they weren't allowed to search her bag. And she was having this major conniption. She's like, you are not allowed to search my bag. I have diplomatic immunity. And the guy's like, lady, this is not like, I'm like, oh, this is going to be an interesting thing, right? Does religion, does diplomatic immunity trump going to religious venue? And she ended up having to leave the line because she would not open her bag. And I just thought, what have you got in there?
Yeah.
You got a wallet, what do you got in there that is so important that you refuse to let someone search your bag? So she just ended up stomping off and leaving the line, and we were all laughing at her because I'm like, hey, just open your bag, lady. You want to go to the site? Like, open your bag.
Yeah.
So anywho, it was kind of interesting. So it was just more experiences like that, and just having these interactions with folks, and sort of watching how people interact with these places as you're going through and experiencing them at the same time.
Yeah, this lady probably like put like her ego in front of, logic.
Absolutely. She missed out because it was something to see. So I don't even know if they still open it to visitors now. But it was a beautiful, beautiful venue to visit for sure.
Yeah, well, I guess in 2025 we don't know what's really open to visitors anymore.
Oh, I don't know. Or if that lady's still holding her handbag really tight, and like, no, I got to go into my stuff. It's still private.
Maybe she went back.
Yeah, without her bag. Left her bag with her friend because it's so important not to open it. I don't know, man. But we were laughing at her, and she gave us the big stink eye, and we just went, whatever. You enjoy your little closed handbag. Don't miss this beautiful thing.
That guy who was a security is probably like, this woman is crazy.
Yeah, it was I was so proud of him, because usually the Israeli soldiers, they're just young, right? They're just kids, are like 18 to 22, or like you and there's not many older ones sort of cruising around the city. And he stood right up to her, and she was like old, bitter, like really just waving her passport around like everyone should, like a lasso. And I know he just kicked her out. I was pretty proud of him.
Yeah. When I talk to you, I'm not sure if I mentioned this in the first episode. I think of the book Eat, Pray, Love.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I mentioned it in the first show. There was someone I did mention it to. I'm not sure if it's you or there was someone else. And I mentioned the book, and then I mentioned the movie, and I said I watched the movie first. Then I came across the book. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
It was a good match. It was in sync. But phenomenal story.
It was not. And what I liked about her story as well is it was kind of three succinct parts. Like I enjoyed the sort of like the Eat, Pray, Love, and it was all kind of three different locations. I think that the one, and it'd probably be one of the closer stories to what you would get by reading one of my books. And I think what is in there's like her personal recovery from, there's always a start point, right? In terms of what kicks you off, like what starts you off, like what was your catalyst, right? Like what was your tick over point? And everyone has one. It's just what you do with it, right? Do you change your job, move town, or whatever or just get fit, or could be anything, right? And but I think the difference for me was that this trip was longer and probably just cheaper. Like it was done on a budget. It was such a budget. And someone asked me at the book launch, they said, okay, well, if you could go to any of these places again, where would you go in book 3? And I said, well, am I on a budget? Because I'm not on a budget. If I have all the money, I could do it like really fancy. I would probably love to go back to Egypt because it was so beautiful, and just like all the things you can see there are just so magical. But I don't know if I could do it in a budget format again and just deal with the harassment of the locals and just the extreme. You can do it pretty cheap, but it's, the environment might not be that great. Like there was lots of bed bugs and lots of really gross places that we stayed, and yeah. So it depends on what you're into, or how much money you can afford, or how much you're willing to say, okay, I'm just going to roll with it because I want to do this badly enough that I'm just going to stay at this $4 a night place and just look past everything, blinders, and roll with it. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I'm that type of person. Like, I'm not too fussy about where I'm staying. It's more about the experience for me.
Yeah.
Like, let's just say, I got a budget of, hypothetically speaking, or let's just say it's $1 million, you know? Okay, so now you're going to do stuff that's going to come with the heavy costs, a price tag that's quite high, linked to what you're going to do. But if you're on a tight budget, let's just say now I only got $50,000 or even $20,000, you're going to be like, okay, how can I make this work? Let me get to the rough side of this travel. Let me understand the people, here, not here.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. I didn't do this, but I did hear backpackers when they were in places, they would kind of put on their fanciest duds, which were never very fancy, and go to like a posh hotel just to treat themselves to a nice drink, and the haves and the have-nots. And there's a lot of haves and have-nots in this book too, because at the time I went, it was a year after the murders that happened in the Hatshepsut temple in Aswan, and or in Luxor, and it was so they have these armed security guards to get in and out of Luxor, and everybody had to go in the same way. So if you arrived on those bougie boats, like, I don't know if you've seen like any kind of romantic movie or something where people are cruising along the Nile in these really nice boats, and they have all these. So we were on these little tugboats on these feluccas where you slept on the deck is what we did, and we looked like a bath toy boat next to these luxurious boats, but everybody had to get off in Edfu just outside of town and then bus in with armed guards on either end of the convoy. And so you'd see all these posh people, they'd get off in their designer gear, big hats, like linen suits, and we're just like wearing our garb, and just kind of like kicking along in the dirt, and hadn't showered because we'd slept on the deck of the boat. And so yeah, you'd see these haves and have-nots and sort of see what it was like, but everyone had to get in and out of the city the same way. So it's kind of interesting, just as crossovers. That wouldn't happen now because I think they've got their security thing. Well, I think they have it under control. But back then it was their mitigation strategy. For me, it just sounded dangerous. Like everybody knew at exactly 10 o'clock the convoy would leave from this dirt parking lot and then drive into town. So I don't know. To me, that seemed like a better, if I was trying to do something, I'd be like, okay, I know when they're coming and going. It seemed a little, anyways, that's just my brain, how it was working. But I thought this feels more dangerous. But anyway, I'll just let them roll with it. Hope they have it under control.
There's so much history, with Egypt. That's what fascinates. It's a country that, really does fascinate me. I mean, it's fascinated me since I think I was like in the 7th grade. Egypt has always fascinated me. I think the first movie I watched that was linked to Egypt was The Mummy.
The Mummy. So good. So good. So good. Mine was Indiana Jones. When he was in the market and he gets into that guy with the big whip comes out, and then he just ends up shooting him with his gun. He's like, about it. And I kept thinking, oh my God, I can't wait to get to Cairo. It's going to be exactly like Indiana Jones. And it totally wasn't. So I was really disappointed with Indiana Jones. They really led me down this path to see like, oh, how cool is everything going to be? He's digging in the desert. And so, yeah, Indiana Jones had a lot of explaining to do. Even when he's riding along to get to Petra and he's riding through the gorge, and then he goes into the treasury, and it's this room. And yeah, you go into the treasury and there's nothing there. It's just a very small like playing room. So I
I
was a
think
little
I,
bit disappointed at first of all, at myself for thinking that it was going to be exactly how they said it was going to be. And then, but it was still all worth it. So some places were exactly like they were in the movie. And Aswan, for example, is a perfect example of, what you would hope with these beautiful spices and these markets and just this real sort of selling carpets and having conversations and having tea and just it's very much like that. And it was a pretty neat experience to have. Absolutely.
yeah, I think you need to go to the places they say do not go, not allowed. You know, that's probably where
Yeah.
you're going to get the Indiana Jones experience.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, no,
yeah.
there's so much history, and I feel like when you look at the world today, from culture to religion, there's so much history, from Egypt linked to it. You
Hmm.
know, there people need to really like educate themselves or read further into history. Why do we do certain things in 2025, for example? Then you read more about it. You read about the ancient gods, for example.
Hmm.
You're like,
Hmm.
okay, that's linked up. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you're a Christian, you would know, depending how much you're actually looking into it, Jesus also spent a lot of time in Egypt.
Hmm.
What was he doing in Egypt? What was he
Hmm.
learning in Egypt? And I
Hmm.
was also obsessed with Cleopatra growing up. And
Oh
I
God,
came
definitely. Why wouldn't you be so
yeah,
interesting?
yeah,
Absolutely. It's a perfect person to be obsessed with. Absolutely. Absolutely. It was well worth it. And even the end of the book, we climbed Mount Sinai in the middle of the night to get there for sunrise. And just even experiencing that's just such a gift. And it's a gift there for everybody. Like you can just rock on up and just it's yeah, something to experience. Absolutely.
yeah. No, perfect. So when we talk about the book now,
Mhm.
once again, we're not giving it all away, but I gotta ask, like at the end of your books, do you have like to be continued? you know?
Well, I try not to have to be continued. So it is a 5-part series, right? So this is the I kind of, because they're 5, I kind of call it days of the week. Like this is Wednesday, so we're at Wednesday, and they each have their own story. So this one follows in terms of just really getting comfortable. Book 1 was just kicking it off and finding the courage to do what I've always wanted to do. And that was
Yeah,
that was book 1. And really to sort of say, okay, I've got this. Like, what am I doing here? So that was book 1. And that personal journey happens within the space of leaving home the to Russia. So, and that's the first one. And then you can just read that one and it tells you that there's more to come. But if you're like, nah, I'm good, like I just wanted to read this part of it, you can just read that part of it. So each book ends, it is a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it gives you an ending, and you feel satisfied from a reader perspective that what you set out to achieve in the beginning of the book was achieved. It's not like a cliffhanger of whole like coming up, but there is definitely, for example, with this book, you end, like you go through and there's personal, like, okay, this is what I want to achieve in the beginning of the book, and you have your ups and downs throughout it. At the end, you have a nice close off in terms of, okay, this is where we've achieved. And this book ends really nicely because it ends right when we're finished the Middle East, and I'm just about to head off to Nairobi to start the safari. So there is definitely okay, this is coming next, but it's not, I don't feel from a reader perspective that you're like, oh man, like that's just like, and then the person was just about to get stabbed or something. I mean, you don't know what happens. It's not like that. You'll end and feel satisfied that you've taken a journey. But if you're curious to see what happens next, then you'll be interested in reading the next book.
yeah. I mean, that's why it's called a series. You know,
Yeah, I know.
that's why it's called a series. I don't know
Yeah.
about you, but like if I watch a series, like let's
Uh-huh.
just say it's not a live series,
Uh-huh.
something that's maybe from like 2012, I will watch all 16 episodes in one night.
Yeah. Just get your binge on. Get your stretchy pants ready. Get some
So
chips. Get
yeah,
started.
you say you're not going to, I'm going to watch like one, two, maybe three. I'll watch, and you're like, no, no, I need to know what happens next play. I need to know what happens next play.
I know, I know, I know. Yes, it is true. I feel that as well. I'm very much it's I don't know, it's just this sort of when I grew up, it was, you'd have one show and you'd be like waiting all week and then you'd get
Yeah,
it, like turn on the TV, suffer through all the commercials, and then just be like, oh, I can't wait for next week. And yeah, there's this definite culture of like, give it to me now. I want it, I want it all right away. So, like I said, as much as possible, I try to write these books so you can read them individually, and they all have their own beginning. It's not just a dump of the last book. There's a couple within a couple of pages, you're pretty much caught up in terms of what's happened to date, and then you can just take the journey. So yeah.
yeah.
But
I
yes,
guess
I'm with you. I want the whole thing right away. Give it all to me. I want it all today.
As long as the reader is satisfied, I mean,
Mhm,
I
mhm.
read it, I want to be satisfied, and I want to take away something from this positive experience, that Candace has shown me,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted there. Not like this, oh no, now what,
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And you
Yeah.
do get, I mean, there is material out there where it's like, okay, it was a good story, but the ending wasn't done well. If I look at movies recently, I can think of two, right? Where, Fast and Furious 10, the latest Mission Impossible. I didn't really, enjoy the ending. It
Oh,
wasn't.
did you go see that one? Because we didn't. We were going to go this
No, no,
weekend, but
no, no, not the second one, not the second one, like the first one. Are
oh,
we
okay,
talking about
okay.
Mission Impossible or Fast and Furious 10?
The Mission Impossible.
Mission Impossible, yeah. So I haven't seen,
Yeah,
um,
the latest,
what's it
latest
called?
one.
Reckoning something, whatever. But the first one, like I wasn't like completely satisfied with how it ended. I guess because,
Yeah.
watching all the Mission Impossibles, you also get used to the movie ending, there, and the
Yes.
next one
They
that comes
wrapped
out
up.
is,
Yeah. And they
yeah,
might have opened up the opportunity for the next movie, but at least they've wrapped it up. I have to say, as one thing that frustrates me now as I get more comfortable with writing and editing, because editing is a real like it's a precision scalpel job, right? In terms of saying, okay, if I cut these couple of pages out, and yeah, it's interesting, but does it add, right? Does it add to what I'm trying to say, and making that sort of delete choice. And there's times when I think it was the last James Bond movie I was watching, and when Daniel Craig was having this end scene fight before the island blew up. Oh gosh, I hope I didn't ruin the movie. It's old enough that people should be okay with it. But anyway, the fight scene went on forever. Like I enjoy a good fight scene, like all the choreography. It's all cool, right? Like, ooh,
yeah,
and but it was like on the main floor, on the stairs, on the second floor, on the next floor. And it just went on and on. And I thought,
yeah, yeah,
I was fine if I look at my watch, then I know, okay, so that fight scene could have been edited a little. Like I could have done with, I don't know, even just 10 seconds less of the fight or
yeah,
20
yeah,
seconds less of the fight. It's fascinating to me for like as an author to be able to look at that objectively and say, okay, and it's just my nerdy brain working. And I say, okay, what was I bored with? What was there? And I think about that fight scene often. And I think about, it was just too long. Like it was right at the end. And I get that he was about to die and he's giving up a lot for other people and everything. But I just thought it would have been better if it was just like that 10, 12, 15 seconds less. And then I would have really been on the edge of my seat and really quite, would have been sharper, wouldn't have been as dragged out. And so I apply that to when I'm writing the books. And I was rereading a part when I was editing, and I just thought, okay, why is this dragging? Like, this is a pretty good scene. It seems to be working, but I had just repeated a few things, or I just dragged something on a little bit longer. So I thought, okay, let me try cutting out this half page here, paragraph there, and I just cut out a few things. And it was just such a better read after I had thought about, okay, why, you have that feeling, you're like, oh, it's a bit draggy, or there's something going on, or it's just not quite working. And if you take the time to sort of say, okay, I'm going to cut a few things out and see, oh, okay. And it works so much better without all the extra and the time that you spend editing. And I feel that this is like, I spent a lot of time editing the other books as well, but this one I was really quite thoughtful about the editing and thinking about, okay, what makes this drag and why is this shouldn't be there, like, and just addressing it rather than going, oh, it's okay, I'll just leave it. Like, no. So anyways, I learn from those moments when I watch something or when I get bored or when I know I look at my watch or I think my toes starts to tap and I'm like, okay, why am I bored with this? Why is it? And I kind of log it in the back of my head to add to my repertoire of editing techniques, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, that's the benefit, of watching, such a movies or series, because you also learn, okay, what to do, what not to do, where could I do better, subconsciously it's teaching you something as a creative,
Yeah,
based on,
absolutely.
What you just said. I said you're watching this, 007 movie and you're thinking, okay, I could have brought this down by 10 seconds if I was the one actually directing this movie,
Yeah.
but then you just, take those ideas, and then you
Yes.
put it into your book.
Yeah, and
100%.
again, I'm not a director of any means, but I know as an enjoyer of the art, I was bored at that moment when I
Yeah.
shouldn't have been bored. And that was more the thing. I was like, you know what? Why was I bored right now? That was a pretty cool scene. It was lots of, like, it was very well done. It was just too long. They didn't spend the time sort of saying, okay, where can we, cut something? It was just too long.
Yeah.
Which
No,
is
I feel you.
interesting, right? It was
Yeah.
very well done, but it was too long, so I was bored. No matter how good it is, if it's too long, then I'm going to be bored. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just
But
me.
it's also, when we look at, series, or we look at movies that gets released, there's also, how can we benefit more financially with the franchise as well? That
Mm-hmm.
also plays a huge role. So if
Mm-hmm.
we are going to have, now a second part to this Mission Impossible
Mm-hmm.
series, or we can have,
Mm-hmm.
Fast and Furious 10 Part 2 now, they know they're going to double the profits as well with that,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's also that. But I mean, how much people, yeah, I guess because you watched it from, the first one, you're going to
Yes.
force yourself to watch it because, I don't want any FOMO here. Let me just
Yes.
watch it.
Well, you also know what you're getting, right? There's a formula. It's like reading, like any series. If you enjoyed the first couple, you're like, okay, I'm going to give that one a go. And maybe there's different characters in the next book, and you think, oh, I don't like the villain as much as I did in the other books or whatever. But you still know the formula. It's a comforting way to spend a couple of hours. And I think there's a sweet spot in movies. And again, I'm not a movie aficionado. I don't claim to be. I'm just a consumer, right? When it comes to movies. And I think if I go to a movie and it's an hour and a half, I feel a bit like, that was a bit short. But anything over 2 hours feels like, oh my God, that was so long. So there's this real sweet spot. I don't know the number, if it's like 45 or 47 or 1 hour and 47 minutes or something, but there's that last sort of 15 minutes where you kind of drag on, and there's some scenes, and it's funny. I challenge you next time you're in a longer movie to see when you look at your watch and what scene is it that has you looking at your watch? Is it because it's a repetitive scene, or is it just too long? Like, have the characters been talking about the same thing for too long? Like, or are they driving somewhere too long, or is it the fight scene that's too long? But I have to say, I think the reason I keep going back to the James Bond fight scene, because I really liked the movie. I just loved it. I loved Daniel Craig, and he was such a strong James Bond, and I really enjoyed it. And then this stupid fight scene went on way too long. Okay. Oh, I'm really disappointed at you, sort of editor, for not sort of looking at that and saying, okay, that was too long. So anyways, that's just, I will get off my James Bond fight scene. But I do find that I take those moments and think, okay, I loved that movie, but I was frustrated at that exact point. So what that did was just make me remember, I can't even remember the movie. All I remember was that fight scene was too long. And a lot of people just pick on the point that they don't like. And you can't please everybody, you know. But if there's a way to identify as you're going on in your own work to be able to say, I have a feeling like there's something here, and spending that time to go through and fix it. And like I said, it was this in this book that I wrote, Cairo, I had gone on too long about this one specific thing. And I just thought, oh, it just lost all its punch. It's lost all its impact because of just, it's too much, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, I try to, I'm not, we're going to catch everything, but as much as possible, even if I have my own feeling, then I try to say, okay, this has got to be changed. There's a doubt, there's no doubt. That's what I always tell my kids.
Yeah. So. Now, what I can take away from this, even though we've been talking so much about movies, is that with your work and with your books and with your writing, you've considered the audience, you've considered the readers. As much as I would love to tell you this whole story, every single bit of detail, I'm probably gonna, bore you as well. So I don't want that.
Yes.
I don't want that.
No. And I think that was something as a writer when I started, because writing something like this, it's stemming from my journals. So I wrote all sorts of journals when I was traveling, and, woke up at 5 and then, humped it to the train station and bought a sandwich. And, you don't need to know that. Like, you just need to be either getting off the train at the new place, or something funny happened on the train, then you need to be on the train. Like, I don't know, something happened in the toilet or whatever. And that's what you're going to hear. But I think as a someone transcribing the adventure to this sort of to a story, that's where it was taking time to get rid of those real boring bits and just sort of saying, okay, everybody knows you got up and brushed your teeth, like, we're good. Or maybe you didn't brush your teeth, but hopefully you did. And just from a hygiene perspective, but anyway, it's just being able to identify. And someone once told me that once you have the arc of your story and what you want to achieve in that book, it's going to be really easy to understand what parts of the book need to be expanded and what parts need to be either cut out or just shortened. So as I went through and really understood what I wanted the reader to experience as a story, then it was really easy to pick. And I often just sort of see as much as possible in my editing process if I can cut things at the beginning or the end of the scene, and really beef out the middle so that the experience is more robust and more rich. And just, can I just dump you in earlier, cut you off earlier, so that we can use those couple of paragraphs to beef out the middle so the experience is more, is richer.
Well, I love your formula. It makes so much sense, sense to me. A thought came to mind, which is once again completely off topic when you were talking.
Oh, well, I love off topic. What have you got?
I was thinking about my history teacher in school. I can even remember his surname. It was Mr. Keane, Keane. And he never liked me. But I remember once he said he doesn't. he said maybe because I argued with him all the time. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that guy. Oh, yeah.
You have to ask questions, like, you can't just tell me something about history and then I'm asking a question, about, whoever, and then it became like, I don't know, it's an argument, like I'm disputing. I'm not disputing this one, I'm curious. But anyway, so he told me once that he doesn't watch movies because he doesn't understand how someone can, or how one scene can finish off, and then 5 minutes later it starts with the next day, and then he's asking me, doesn't the guy go to the toilet or have a shower? You know what I mean? Doesn't he sleep?
Yeah.
So like, okay, makes sense.
Yeah, it's funny, hey, like, you don't need to, there's certain scenes where, like, in the books, for example, in the first book, for example, I have this shower scene because I get locked in the shower in in St. Petersburg, and there's one guy in the bathroom, and I was trying to shout to him, but he had, I could see that he had hearing aids, and he must have not had them like clicked on or something. And I was banging on the door and I couldn't get out. Someone else came in and heard me. But there's just things like that where you would talk about saying, okay, I have a shower, but because of this, like I got locked in, and it was, anyways, there was a few other things that happened, but sometimes you talk about those things. But for me, it's only if there was a event around, what happened. But it's it would be a very boring story. It would be like they made it work in the Truman Show, but I don't think they even in the Truman Show showed him going to the bathroom and showering all the time. I don't know.
So like, that's a lot of humor in your work,
Mm-hmm.
Like I would read it, I'll be like, ha ha ha, that's funny to
You
me.
should. My goal is that I kept the sort of the funniest parts in, and and I recently took a sort of significant trip with my kids, and someone said, "Oh, are you going to, write about it?" And I thought, well, I don't know. And to be honest, it was fun. We had a great time, but I was really organized and I planned everything out and we did everything and it was fun. But I didn't feel like where the story gets juicy or where the story gets interesting is when you have, weird things that happen or not so great things that happen or funny things that happen. And we did it like a small camping thing, and it was 3 nights. And we still talk about that camping trip because it was such an epic, chaotic adventure. But the rest of the trip was all, we had a great time. But it was these 3 days that we still have the sayings from, and the funny things, and the family jokes all come around that. But it's because of those times of that aren't so great, and because of the type of adventure this was I have this much money. And in this book, I tell you, I have $6,000. I'm like, I have $6,000 and I'm going to see where $6,000 gets me. And it wasn't it was just a time thing. So every cheapest option was the best option. So because that, and there's no advanced planning and buying the waiting to get the tickets and hanging out and staying wherever, you end up with all these crazy things because it wasn't a planned thing. It was just let's see where we get to today kind of thing. So you never know. Yes.
Spontaneous thing. No, I can see you, you said you on Wednesday, by the time you get to Friday, it might just be like a Saturday and Sunday, also life after all that.
Yeah. I had thought about continuing it on, but I think I'm going to be, my plan is to be done at Friday and start something new. I'm still working out what that's going to be because I still have 2 wonderful books to sort of crank out. And Thursday's going to be awesome because it goes to Africa and it's this full safari and it's just an experience I had never experienced before. So that's Thursday. But for now, we get to enjoy Wednesday, which is the middle of the Yeah.
What would be a good strategy would be like, concluded Friday, start all your other projects, and like 5 years from now, release a Saturday. And it's going to be like,
I like that.
Wow, just out of nowhere. It's like when
I like that.
Yeah, it's like Harry Potter. I can use Harry Potter as an example. You think it's going to, it's done. J.K. Rowling is done. All of a sudden, new movie in the making. Yeah, it's coming all of a sudden. It's a brilliant strategy. It's a brilliant strategy because no doubt, fans are going to want to watch it, no matter how old they are.
Yes, that's true. Well, I will mention you if I do Saturday.
Yeah, 100%. So to conclude, before we conclude, is there anything else you want to say? That you want to mention, like about the book, but not give away too much because there's some things you want people to actually find out?
No, I just think I just hope folks read it and just enjoy it. It's it's a funny. I want people to. It's funny. It's easy. Although at times it deals with heavy topics. It's a pretty light read. It's just an easy read, and it's on Kindle Unlimited. So for anybody who I love Kindle Unlimited because I like testing out new authors and reading lots of books, and you can easily just pick it up on Kindle Unlimited and just read it, or just read it on Kindle really easily. So, and just relax. Enjoy. Yeah.
I think let's show people the book again. Let's show people how
Okay.
awesome love is. I mean, who wouldn't want to? I mean, come on, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Hello.
That's good. That's good. I love it.
There you go.
That's good. When I do the edit, when I do the reels, I need to get that. I need to get that part.
Well,
Okay,
I
Miss.
love talking to you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's because it's diversified, and we just blend it into the work.
Mhm.
Sometimes listeners will think like, okay, what are they talking about here? And how is this linked to Candace? How is it linked to what? But I mean, you just need to look further in your nose, how we just like bring it together.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because you know the world very well. You've been to countries that people probably don't even know about out there. You've had
Yeah.
experiences that people probably only see in movies, but
Yeah.
it all just ties in. All just
Yeah.
ties in. You're fun, you're energetic. I can
Mhm.
see why the cover's designed the way it's designed, why the story is told the way it's so, because it's who you are.
Mhm. Mhm.
This is
Mhm.
me.
But
You
it's
know,
old me. So remember, in case you graduate, I'm a little bit smarter now. So, but yeah.
Saturday and Sunday will be new you.
Yeah, Saturday and
You
Sunday. New
know,
me.
one
Woo-hoo.
day down. Yeah. So, do you want to mention, where everyone can find you online? You've mentioned that the book is available. I gotta ask, what, like, how do you manage Kindle? Because I battle with Kindle. Like, I got books in there that I battle to get finished because it's like, scrolling.
Yeah,
Whereas it like,
I think
let
it's
me
a
hold the
personal
book.
preference. Some folks just love reading books. I actually prefer to read on my Kindle. Um, it's really personal, right? It's just what works. Everyone has their own thing. So if you're struggling with the Kindle, I think I read a lot. So I love reading. And if I actually bought all the books, I think my husband would be like, "What?" I'd have to hide them in places. Like I had to have like a special place under my bed to put
Yeah,
everything,
yeah.
so he wouldn't be able to see all the books I would read. So I think it's just on your how you consume the words best. But interesting, when I do the reviews, I do it both like on paper and online, and I listen to it. So I kind of tackle all the different ways to work with the words together. Uh, but yeah, so that's how I roll with Kindle. But I think again, total personal preference. My daughter loves the books. She'll only read books like in print. So everyone's different.
I'm not gonna lie, it's economical. I mean,
Mhm.
okay, if I'm in South Africa and I want a book from an author in Canada, Kindle is the best option. I'm gonna get it
Yes.
straight away,
Yes.
and it's cheaper. But even though I prefer, having a physical book in my hand, so I think it's
Yeah.
pros and cons, but I
Yeah.
agree with you. It is personal. I
Yes.
guess for me, it's just like screen time. Like okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
It's much better for your brain to probably read in Kindle. But
But yeah, no, but I love how you've designed your book. Like you do it by yourself when it comes to the design.
yeah, well, not by myself. I had a very patient man who lives in Pakistan who helped me, and he's so good. I was constantly like that right there and that right there, and he'd send it back to me. I don't know how much patience that man has, but a lot of it. And he was very kind and very thoughtful and very thorough. So he was excellent. So I had a great partner, and he came up with the concept, and then we just kind of rolled with it together. So having someone that you can troubleshoot with, who you trust and who sees your vision, is I like
Yeah,
most things with this writing process. I interviewed and like took a chance on a couple of people that just weren't the right fits, which is fine. Like not everybody works for everybody, and just keep looking until you find the right person.
Yeah,
to work
100%.
with.
Not
Yeah.
get someone on Fiverr and then he's gonna tell you, oh no, it's only, you have to pay me this amount of money, but I'm only gonna, edit it one last time for you, and then that's it. You have
Yes.
to pay extra for that. You don't want to work
Yes.
with people like that.
Yeah. Actually, I found this guy on Fiverr. He was one guy I did find
Really?
on Fiverr.
Well,
Yes,
you found a good one. You found a good
I
one.
did. He is
Yeah.
so good. So, anyways, sometimes you do, right? And I think that it's just taking the chance and finding the right folks. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll get your one or two, people out there
Hmm.
that,
Hmm.
will let you down or whatever. But
Yeah.
there's some ones out there, you just have to trust the universe and know that God is going to lead you to the right people.
Yeah, and also be quite clear with what you want, right? If you're
Yeah.
quite clear with what you're looking for and you're quite clear what your expectations are, and then just having those conversations pretty upfront and just understanding if you want to work with someone. It's just like anything, I needed this little piece of work done outside my house, and I had interviewed a bunch of folks, and this guy came to my door, and I'm like, okay, I can talk to you. I can say, hey, this is what I want to do, and they understand me. So that's that connection. For me, anyways, I need that connection. I need someone who can understand what I'm looking for and I can connect with, and that I would look forward to working with. There's nothing worse than you're like, oh, I have to talk to this person and it's uncomfortable and you're kind of
Yeah.
techy. And if you can find folks that connect with you, then great.
Keyword there, connect. I mean, it takes one conversation to know if that's going to be the right person.
Hmm.
One conversation.
Absolutely.
Energy is so important.
It
You know,
is. It is.
we're feeling
And if
each other.
you,
Yeah, cool, let's do
yeah,
this.
if you're not
100%.
connecting, then how do you expect, to get, you're going to be uncomfortable. Well, why am I going to pay you if I'm uncomfortable with you? I'm happy to engage in a working relationship with someone, but I need to be comfortable. If I'm not
Yeah,
comfortable, then, it's
yeah,
not going to work. And if I don't connect, yeah, it's not the right relationship for me.
100%. As you said, it's a shared vision. It's a
Mhm.
shared vision. You need
Mhm.
to believe in my vision.
Yes.
We are going to make
Yes.
this work.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely. 100%.
100%.
Woo.
Thank you, Candace, so much once again.
Yeah.
A pleasure having you on, and looking forward for Thursday.
I know.
Catch you
Thursday's
on
going to be awesome.
Thursday.
I know. I hope everyone enjoys Wednesday because it's a lot of fun and it's a really easy, fun read just to sit back and kick back a bit and just enjoy the trip. So
Yeah,
thank you.
100%, 100%. Thank you so much for having. Sorry for taking the time,
No,
and all
I
the
was
best,
fun.
all the best, all the best with the
You too.
book, and yeah, keep going
And
for
I'll
it.
I'll see you again soon.
Yes, you will. Okay, thanks,
Okay.
Candace.
Okay.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Bye.